Hello all. Today we are going to read the poem named The Trees by Adrienne Rich. This poem, on the superficial level, deals with the theme of the conflict between man and nature. Man tries to curtail the freedom of nature by removing natural objects from their natural habitat and thus disturbing ecological balance. But on the deeper level, the poem emphasizes the need of giving freedom to people of all genders, races, and classes. Particularly, the poem metaphorically emphasizes the need of freedom for women who have been subjected to slavery in the patriarchal society. Now, let us try to understand this poem after reading it. The trees inside are moving out into the forest that was empty all these days, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun bury its feet in shadow. The forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning. Now, what happens here? The poet presents the picture of a forest from where the trees have been removed by people, either to decorate their houses or for commercial reasons. The trees planted in the confined spaces of homes now rebelling against their imprisonment and moving out towards their natural habitat, the forest. And as I told you, metaphorically it is presenting women. So here poet says that the struggle of women against the slavery imposed on them for centuries in a patriarchal society. Because parallelly we will be talking about the figurative meaning of the poem as well. Further, the poet says, where no bird could sit, no insect hide, no sun bury its feet in shadow, the forest that was empty all these nights will be full of trees by morning. Now, poet says, with the trees away from the forest failed to provide shelter to birds and insects. There were no branches and leaves to make the sunlight filter to the ground. But now the trees are going to occupy their original place, and by the morning the forest will be filled with trees. In these lines, the trees are used both literally and symbolically. They are the symbols of human beings who are dominated, exploited, and enslaved. Again, special focus on women who have suffered enslavement since ages. Next, all night the roots work to disengage themselves from the cracks in the veranda floor. The leaves strain toward the glass, small twigs stiff with exertion. Long cramped boughs shuffling under the roof like newly discharged patients, half dazed, moving to the clinic doors. Here, especially, the poet is trying to say that how different the parts of the tree strive to liberate themselves from the cramped environment of the house to move towards their natural habitat. The poet says that the root of the trees struggle hard to break themselves free from the cracks formed in the floor of the veranda of the house. Let you all underline this. Disengage themselves. Disengage themselves means that the trees want to leave the cramped space of the unnatural habitat of the house, because house is not their natural habitat and they are trying to come out of it and move to the forest. Therefore, the roots are trying hard to uproot themselves from the house. Further, the leaves strain toward the glass. The leaves try to come out of the glass. Because of the strain they have to put it for freedom. They have grown stiff. The long branches move stiff restlessly under the roof, trying to get out of it. The poet is comparing the branches to the patients who have been discharged from a clinic and moved towards the door to come out of their confinement. These newly discharged patients are half dazed because they are still under the impact of medicine, or I must say anesthesia. Right? Let you all even underline long cramped bows shuffling under the roof. Right? Next, I sit inside, doors open to the veranda, writing long letters. Who is writing long letters? The narrator said she has been, because the poet is female. The narrator, she has been sitting in the room, that opening to the veranda, and has been lost into writing letters, while the tree has been trying to break free out of the space. But the narrator shows indifference and does not mention the trees in the letters, and that is what told here, in which I scarcely mention the departure. Means poet says, I have hardly mentioned about the departure of the trees towards the forest. Or we can say, these lines bring out the indifference of society towards the hard struggle of women for their liberation. Generally we see everywhere we could talk about men, but when it comes about women, hardly we have something to speak. So poetess has tried to bring out the same thing. That's why she didn't mention anything about the trees coming to the forests. Further she says, the night is fresh, means it is a full moon night. Here the night is fresh, the poet wants to say it is a full moon night. The whole moon shines in a sky still open. The smell of leaves and lichen still reaches like a voice into the rooms. What does it mean? The leaves of the tree and lichen emit fragrant smell which the narrator can feel in the room. The moon is whole. Here the poet is talking about that the moon is a whole, as there are no trees to obstruct its view or filter its light. Right? Now further he says, my head is full of whispers. Tomorrow will be silent. Listen, the glass is breaking. The trees are stumbling forward into the night. Wind rushes to meet them. The moon is broken like a mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Right? So what does the poet say here? That my head is full of whispers. She said, I could listen the sound of leaves, twigs and boughs, and has seen the struggle of the tree for freedom, which is quite certain that the night of their slavery will soon give place to the morning of their freedom. The glass is breaking means the glass windows which the twigs were trying to break and come out is now breaking. The poet is trying to tell us that you try to listen the sound of the people who are trying to come out of this enslavement. She points out towards the success of the women against their slavery. And when this line, the moon is broken like a mirror, its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Earlier, when it was in the previous stanza, it was a full moon night, and we could see clearly its light because there were no forests to filter the light of the moon. But now, as the trees are moving towards the forest, the moon, seen through the leaves at the top of the oak tree, looks like a mirror broken into pieces, as against the full moon seen earlier without the presence of trees. Because try to understand, without trees, without trees we could see the moon clearly, but now in the forest, when there are long trees, tall trees like oak tree, so obviously when we will look at the moon, it will be filtered and we feel like it is a broken. We are looking into the broken mirror. So these lines point toward the completion of the journey of the trees towards the freedom of the forest, and present the beautiful image of the light of the moon that is being filtered by the branches of the trees, which is required. So we all need to pay attention towards this line. The moon is broken like a mirror. Its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. Here it is a comparison when there were no forests and now when there are forests. Right? Now moving towards the poetic devices of the poem. Hope you all are ready with your pen and paper to note down the poetic devices. Fine. So the poetic devices here we have, number 1, personification. Because it is used here to give the human trait, like the trees inside are moving out into the forest. This is the trait of human. So here personification has been used. Like as in, the trees are moving out into the forest in the first line. Then further, no sun bury its feet in shadow. No sun bury in the 5th line, its feet in shadow, means here sun is personified as a living creature with feet. Okay. Next, there is simile. Simile as like newly discharged patients. In the 2nd stanza, last 3rd line, like newly discharged patients. Simile is used here. Then repetition, the forest that was empty. It is being repeated to emphasize the forest that was empty all these days. Fine, you could see it in the 2nd line, and in the same very first stanza, the 2nd last line, going with the same words. Then we have anaphora. In the 1st stanza, see, no insect hide, no sun bury. So the repetition of no and no means the beginning of line with the two different lines with the same word, no, no. So it is anaphora. Next we have metaphor. Metaphor is used, its pieces flash now in the crown. Right? That is of the tallest oak. So here the crown is used for the top of the oak tree. In the last stanza you could see, its pieces flash now in the crown of the tallest oak. And now again coming back to the 1st stanza, see children, notice there is no punctuation mark from 2nd line to the 1st stanza till the end. They have put a full stop by after the morning. So this is enjambment, right? You have guessed it rightly. It is enjambment. There is no punctuation mark. Then we have very important poetic device, that is imagery, which creates mental picture through words. It makes a poem picturesque because it makes us visualize the scene. So this is imagery. And now this poem is having no rhyming scheme. Fine. Hope you all have understood this poem. Now in case you have doubts, do mention in the comment box. Would really answer to those. Thank you.